CGQ Plus.
All right, so before we get into the episode proper, we of course have to do postcards first. So for anybody who hasn't been paying attention, we have a postcard club now. Basically, you can send a postcard into the show, and I will send you back a postcard. And of course, I don't have one of my postcards here to show you, but yeah, whatever. So first, I got another postcard from Marcelo down in Brazil. So this is another Seninha postcard. Pretty cool. I forgot that he said he was going to send me another one because it says, "Hey Chris, here's the second postcard," and I forgot about that. And I sent you a postcard, Marcelo, a couple weeks ago, but I don't know how long it takes a postcard to get down to Brazil, so just keep your eyes out for that. The next one here I got from Tony in Bedford Hills, New York, and it's just, I don't really know what this is. It's like a flyer for a 9/11 benefit of some kind. I think this is cool, and I just don't know what it is. So I just need to look up, I guess, who this guy is or something. But thank you anyway. It's pretty cool to have this 9/11 thing. And next from Virginia, we have Chris from Centerville, Virginia. So that one's pretty cool. That's the first postcard from Virginia. Virginia, the Old Dominion. So that one's pretty cool. Their state flower is the American dogwood, if you didn't know. Next we got Jeremy from Red Bay, Alabama. That's pretty cool, and this postcard is from the Red Bay Museum, Red Bay, Alabama. Now, I've never been anywhere in the South, really, of this country. I've been all over the this side of the woods, all over the West Coast, and I've been Colorado, Arizona, Utah, been in the Midwest, been just a little bit to New England and Washington, D.C., but I've never been down in the lower right-hand side of the country. I'd love to go down, check some of that stuff out, go down to the Carolinas, have some barbecue, etc., etc. Speaking of that, next postcard comes to us from Adam in Goshen, Kentucky, which I guess is probably a suburb of Louisville because the postcard is from Louisville, Kentucky. And Adam says that he's originally from Modesto, California, which is about a, hour and 15-minute drive from here, so that's pretty cool. So thank you, Adam. Next postcard, this is a cool postcard. This comes from, where's your name, sir? Sean from South Royalton, Vermont. And I don't think you guys would have any way of actually knowing this, but so he sent me this postcard. You see it says Mysterious Adventures there. And I don't know exactly, this says Mysterious Adventures number 5, Story Comics. But really the artwork looks exactly like the old EC Comics. So I don't know if this was a takeoff on EC Comics or if it was just what they used to be called. Anyway, EC Comics is like Tales from the Crypt and shock suspense stories and The Haunt of Fear. I love those comics. I have a bunch of them. They re-released them in the 90s and I bought a bunch of them. And then over there somewhere I have the Vault of Horror hardback edition with a bunch of the issues of the comic book put together. That's pretty cool. So thank you, Sean. Next here we've got from Waco, Texas, I believe. Yep, Dylan from Waco, Texas. And this postcard is from the Dr. Pepper Museum. So that's pretty sweet. Who doesn't like Dr. Pepper? I like it. I didn't know that Dr. Pepper is the oldest, it's the oldest soda in America. Isn't that what it says on here? The history of the oldest major soft drink. I didn't know that. I would have said Coke. Probably most people would say that. But yeah, man, I love Dr. Pepper. So that's pretty sweet. The next postcard is not really a postcard. I'm not going to show it just because it's a family photo, but that comes from the Haynes family from Coshocton. I'm probably not saying that right. Coshocton, Ohio. Is that anywhere near Cleveland, Akron, Canton? That's the only part of Ohio I've been to, but I liked it quite a bit. Ohio is very green, so I like that. I just feel like everything's in the middle of the forest. And of course, Canton, Ohio is where the Football Hall of Fame is. And what Cincinnati has, that Cincinnati Skyline chili that I hear not very good things about. Next, we've got from Bob in Merlin, Oregon. Just sends this, can you see that sort of an outdoorsy kind of deal there. It just says it's the Umpqua River. Am I saying that right? Umpqua. When people think of Oregon, really they think of Portland, but Oregon's got some of the most beautiful nature. I live in Northern California, so it's not that much different, but you go up there and there's just rivers everywhere and there's lots of falls. I just went to a place called Steelhead Falls in August of last year. Wasn't it August? I went up there for the eclipse. I think that was in August, right? But if you get away from Portland and drive east a little bit, and there's so much like hiking to do and things to see. Or even north of Oregon, there's I forgot the name of the falls up there that are real famous, but Multnomah Falls. Those are really cool. Columbia River Gorge is really nice. Next, we've got from another Christopher. Christopher from Hamden, Connecticut. So this is Christopher with a K. So when I was a kid, Chris was like a really common name, Christopher. And so whenever you would tell someone your name, like an adult or somebody that was writing it down, they would always ask, is that Christopher with a C, Christopher with a CH, or Christopher with a K? And I feel like nobody ever asks that anymore, and I don't ever see Christophers with a K anymore. Like, where did they all go? Well, at least one of them is in Hamden, Connecticut. And he just told kind of a cool story. He said that when he was a kid, he lived in South Korea because of the work that his father did. And he said, if I wanted a new SNES or Game Boy game in English, my dad would have to send a fax to the American office asking anybody who was coming over to first stop and go shopping for his kids. So that's pretty cool. Like, a new game would come out, he wants, Final Fight for the Super Nintendo or something. He'd have to have his dad fax the mothership back in the United States and say, hey, if anybody's coming over here, bring a copy of Final Fight. I just thought that was pretty cool. And then the postcard here is just the Yale campus. So Hamden, Connecticut is not too far away from New Haven, Connecticut. That's where Yale is. But New Haven, Connecticut, I've been to New Haven, Connecticut, has the best pizza I've ever had in my entire life. And it's not even close, really. They have this different kind of pizza there. It's called a pizza. So just pizza with an A in front of it, a pizza. And there's like 3 pizza places that serve it in, there's probably more than 3, but there's 3 major ones. There's it's called Sally's. Sally's a pizza, Modern a pizza, and then there's Frank Pepe's Pizzeria, which I think is the original pizza. And you go there any night of the week, and there's like a line out the door waiting for some Frank Pepe's pizza. I don't know what they're doing over there, but that stuff is delicious. Now, if you're on the West Coast and you want to try that style of pizza, if you go to Portland, Oregon, there's a pizzeria called, I think it's called a Pizza Shoal or something like that. Shoal, like Scholl, I think. And I've had that pizza as well, and it just tastes just like New Haven style of pizza because that's what they're trying to do. So it's very good. But I don't know if Chris here goes out for pizza down in New Haven too often, but he should. Next, we've only got a few more here. Next one here is from Joe in Dover, Pennsylvania. And he tells me here that Dover is near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which of course is where the famous Civil War battle is. And so that's what this postcard is depicting there. So that's pretty neat. So thank you. Next we've got is kind of a weird one. I guess this is pretty much what I'm doing, so he's just doing it back. This is from, where's your name, sir? Did you not put your name on here? So it's from Pest Care of Pinellas, and he just says, this is a postcard from my family business. Thanks for doing CGQ. And I'm not seeing your name on here, but you gave me your address, so that's good enough for me to send you one back. So thank you. And speaking of that, the next 2 postcards both don't have return addresses. So if you sent me one of these postcards and you want a postcard back, just email me your address if you forgot. I know there was one guy in the last episode who just didn't want to give out his address, and so he didn't get a postcard, but he understood that. So for these people, if it's the same deal, that's fine, but just making sure. So this one comes, like I said, no name, no nothing, but just says, greetings from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, up in Canada. So this is the first postcard from Canada. One thing I thought was kind of cool about this is that you can buy postcards there that already have the postage paid on them anywhere around the world. So it just has kind of a stamp printed on it. And so he just had to buy that and slap my address on it. So that's pretty cool. And you see it says from the prairies there. I've really never been to Canada. I've been to Canada kind because I went on a cruise that went up to Alaska and back, but there's like some weird law about how cruises have to stop in a foreign port or something. So we stopped in some port on like the west coast of Canada, but that's not like really going to Canada. But I'd really like to go to Canada. And then the last postcard we've got here comes from Ernie. Ernie in Chicago, Illinois. Ernie, you didn't give me your return address, so please give it to me. That, for anybody that might not know, that is just the flag of the city of Chicago. And I've been to Chicago. I had an awesome time in Chicago. I got to go to Wrigley Field 3 times, so that was pretty cool. Watched 2 Cubs games and then got to take a tour of Wrigley Field. So anybody, if you're going to Chicago or you live in Chicago and somehow you don't know this, on like off days when the Cubs aren't playing at home, you can pay like $20 and you get like an all-access tour of Wrigley Field, which is pretty sweet. Like I get to sit in the press box. You get to go down and check out the clubhouse. You can go sit in the dugout. Like I drank water out of the water fountain in the dugout. Like, I don't know why that's cool. They don't let you run around the field because they don't want you to mess up the turf and whatnot. But Chicago style hot dogs are my absolute favorite style of hot dog. Yeah, I don't, get ready to get mad. I don't like Chicago style deep dish pizza at all. Man, a Chicago style hot dog, it's got like, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it's like mustard, relish, sliced tomatoes, a pickle spear, onions, celery salt, and sport peppers. No ketchup. Ketchup has no place on a hot dog or a corn dog, in my opinion. If you like ketchup, go for it, but I don't like that. Anyway, so that's all the postcards we've got for this time. If you would like to, send a postcard to the show and have it featured on the show and have a postcard sent to you in return free of charge, it's just P.O. Box 73126, Davis, California 95617, and that will be down in the video description as well. So that's it for the postcards for this episode, so now let's get back to the show proper. All right, I'm super excited about this. First thing I will say is I will apologize for what I'm sure is horrible audio here. I'm in the little breakfast nook of my kitchen just because that's like the obvious place to set this stuff up. Like the only other option was the dining room, which wasn't going to be any better. So I've had a bunch of people asking me about the Legos they see in the background in my videos. And I had mentioned that, at some point, I'll do a video about Legos. And so I finally kind of figured out a way to kind of tie it together with video games. So I got my first Lego set of sort of this era in probably the fall of 1988 because Jonathan and I got into Legos at the same time. Now, before that, like when I was a kid, I had like basic Legos or I'd play with basic Legos at somebody else's house. But, they were fun for a while, but I just never really got that into them. And then one day I went over to Jonathan's house and he had this Lego set that he picked up. And I have one too. So after seeing what he got, I went, of course, and got the same thing and then got one additional set. So right here, like these are my 2 original Lego sets, which obviously are not Castle Legos. But I had the Laser Ranger here, so obviously a space set. And this one's kind of cool just because the wings, can fold down like that, which I thought was kind of cool. Some sort of semi-reminiscent of like an X-Wing. But I had that one, and then I got this, I think this is called the Twin Wing Spoiler. So it's kind of cool. I mean, in a way, you could say it almost takes cues from Star Wars as well. Like a AT, what's the 2-legged one? ATST? I'm not really sure. Because, it's got these legs, but then they can also fold out, and then it kind of turns into a spaceship. And if I remember correctly, that's kind of what the box was showing, was like, oh, it's like a little walkie thing, and it can fly or whatever. But so these are the first 2 sets that I had. And one of the first things I think about when I look at these sets is, I don't know if I feel like I mentioned previously that my mom had a night job. Like 2 nights a week, she had like a night job that was like 4 hours each night. And I used to go over to my grandparents usually on those nights when I was a little kid. I think I may have mentioned this when I was talking about the Salisbury steaks, because I was talking about how I'd go over to my grandparents' house and, my grandma sometimes would give me one of my grandfather's frozen dinners. And so that was because my mom was at a job, this night job that she had. And as I got older, like when I moved back with my mom, I was 11. And so by then, she could just take me to that job with her sometimes. Like if my grandparents were doing something or just whatever. Because I was old enough that like I could just bring something to do and like she could just let me go sit somewhere and do it. Like where she went was this high school campus. Like it was, and this would have been like the late 80s, but you know, she started that job in the early 80s. And it was this high school campus that was probably built in the early 80s, and it totally looked like it. Like it was the most stereotypical like California early 80s high school. Like it could have been in like a movie, like an 80s teen movie or something. And for some reason, whenever that Rush song, Subdivisions, whenever I hear that, I think of this place. But so the point is, it was in this building that had like 4 or 5 classrooms in it because there was just like multiple buildings on campus. And she was basically helping to teach these adult school classes that would happen in a couple of the classrooms. And then the rest of the classrooms would just be like unused because it was at night. And so I could just bring stuff with me and take it into one of those empty classrooms and just sit in a desk and just amuse myself. And, you know, so I'd like bring, you know, maybe paper and like pens and pencils. And like I used to like to make like my own comic books or fanzines. Or like I think I tried making my own like fake Mad magazine. Like we never talked about that, but like when I was a kid, I loved Mad magazine. And so I used to try to make my own. Even though, you know, they weren't funny. Or, you know, I'd make my own Garbage Pail Kids, stuff like that. And so, like, when I got these first 2 Lego sets, I remember bringing those with me one night. And my mom had one of those, like, cassette tape organizers, like the little plastic one with, like, a clear plastic lid on it. And that's what I had them in, because I think these sets were, like, completely disassembled in there. Because, of course, half the point of Legos is trying to build something else. But, I think starting that Christmas... is when I kind of started asking for Lego sets, you know, like from my grandparents or I don't know why I feel like it usually fell to my grandma. Like I would ask her for a Lego set. Like maybe my dad, I would ask for like a video game. My mom usually like, I mean, she didn't have a lot of money, right? So she couldn't, you know, buy me anything particularly extravagant. But, you know, usually my grandma, I could get something out of her. And so I know at least 3 of the big sets on this table 3 of the big sets on this table were presents from my grandma at different times. And so what happened was when the Castle Legos, I don't want to say when they came out because Castle Legos actually go back before the time period I'm talking about. But I guess maybe when I discovered Castle Legos, something about them just like drew me to them. And I was just fascinated by just that whole fantasy vibe, which is weird because like, I've never been someone who read like fantasy novels. You know, go ahead and get mad. I've never read or watched Lord of the Rings. I just don't really care to. I'm sure they're good. You know, everybody says they're good. I'm sure, but I'm just not that interested in watching or reading them, I guess. Never played Dungeons and Dragons, although I did have a Dungeons and Dragons set when I was a kid. Like you could buy this starter set, like not advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but just base level Dungeons and Dragons, where it came with like the, you know, like a Dungeon Master's handbook and a player's guide, and then maybe like a little pad of the player character sheets and some dice or whatever. And like I used to use, because like I think it was a Dungeon Master's guide had like a little key, like here's how to draw a dungeon. Because right, if you're the Dungeon Master, I guess you're supposed to like design these dungeons for the other people to play in. And like I used to love drawing dungeons. Like I always had graph paper. Like we'd go to the store and I'd always try to get like a new pad of graph paper. Even now upstairs, I have like a stack of pads of graph paper that I don't even really hardly use. But so something about like that whole fantasy thing just kind of had me fascinated. But the main way that, you know, I enjoyed that was just with these Castle Legos. So the first set I got, somebody actually, I didn't have another set in here. The first Castle set that I ever got, somebody left a message on one of my videos really recently saying that they had just gotten this set as well, is this one right here, which is the Black Monarch's Castle. And this was the first of the presents I got from my grandma. And what was cool about this one is that it opens up. So you see it and it's like this, but you can separate it here and then the whole thing opens up, and then like it makes it look bigger, so that's cool, but then also you can kind of play with it more, you know. for the most part, I used to build these sets and just leave them built and kind of play with them. And I wouldn't like tear the whole things apart and make new things very often. But what I used to really like doing is I would just modify things. Like, well, I don't like what they did here or did there, and so I change it. Like, I don't know if you can see this or not, but like on this, I forgot the name of this set. It's like the Black Dragon something. I don't remember. I changed the roof over here because I didn't like what they did. But that was kind of more recently, because this is not a set that I had when I was a kid. But yeah, you could open this and play with it. Like the portcullis lifts up. Although I don't have the string. There's this. Was that what this was? Yeah, the pulley. Oh, this pulley is for the drawbridge. Excuse me. But there's supposed to be a string or like a black thread coming up through here so that you can lift the portcullis. But I guess I don't have it on there for some reason. And so this was the first set I got, and then sometime after that, like I don't know if perhaps this set was a Christmas present, and then I got another one for my birthday, or I don't know the timing, is that I got the Forestman's River Fortress over here. Because then, these guys kind of do battle, because you had like, these are like the, I don't know, I think these are called the Black Dragon Knights. I don't remember anymore, but it was basically, just to step back a little bit. So you had like the bad guys, like these are like the bad guys. They're like the Dragon Knights or whatever. And then over here you have the Lion Knights, and they're supposed to be like the good guys or something. Like I don't know the proper like Dungeons and Dragons terminology, but it's like, you have like lawful good and like unlawful bad or evil, and then you have like the neutral people. So like these are like the bad people, and although I guess they'd be lawful bad, I don't know. And then you have like these would be like the good guys, and then like you have like the Forestmen who are like the neutral, but maybe like lawful neutral, and then like you have Wolfpack up here, and they would be, I guess, maybe like chaotic neutral. I don't know. There's like this whole spectrum, like the Forestmen were not bad guys, but they were bad guys from the perspective of like all of these guys. But then I always felt like the Wolfpack were bad guys even to these guys. But whatever. So I had these two sets, and they used to do battle with each other. And this one's kind of cool because it's supposed to be in the middle of a river. It came with this little dude on a raft. And this one doesn't open up or anything. Oh, yikes! Change that belt. The back of this one opens up. I forgot about that, but there's really nothing back here worth seeing. I don't know what the point of that really was, but I don't know. I mean, I liked this set when I got it, but like this set, when I had this set, like I thought that was like the coolest present like ever. And then another birthday present I got from my grandma, again, not in the same year, was this King's Mountain Fortress, which I don't think I've really made any modifications to. Yeah, this one's pretty good the way it is. This base plate and this base plate are the same base plate. And then there was the El Dorado Fortress, the pirate. I have a few pirate sets, and I have that one, like the El Dorado Fortress that's on it. Base plate came out of the same mold as that, but it's painted differently because that's supposed to be like in the water. And I made a pretty major modification to that one. Some of these sets I was able to... So part of why I'm saying this is like a big part of the reason I didn't have more video games when I was a kid was because this is kind of what I would spend my money on. So basically, I feel like there's like three basic like price tiers to Lego sets. And maybe that's still the case, but back then it's like you had the sets that were generally like under $10, maybe up to 15, like the low end. Then you had like a mid-range set where you had stuff that was like maybe $25 to $50. And then you had the sets that were like over like $80 or $100. And so for me, it was like those high-end sets, that was going to have to be like a Christmas or birthday present. And then mid-range sets, like sometimes I had a little bit of extra money in my pocket. I had done a bunch of chores for people. And examples of sets like that would be like this Forestman's Hideout. I don't remember the names of these sets, but this one's cool too because it opens. Like this one I bought myself, and that was probably like an $18 or $20 set, but maybe I'd done a bunch of chores for a couple days or something, or like I used to ride my bike around the neighborhood and like rake leaves and stuff, or my neighbor would let me come mow his lawn, and this is the kind of stuff I'd spend that money on. And then like this set, this Knights Jousting set here, same thing. Like I bought that with my own money, even though that was probably about a $20 set as well. But then you had a lot of the sets that were like less than $10 like little sets. Like this is a newer set, but that would be an example. You just get like a little carriage or wagon, or this twin arm launcher here. So like, what I would often do, like on say a Sunday, is maybe I thought like, oh, it'd be cool to get a new Lego set. Is I could never just go ask my grandma for money. Like if I went to my grandma and said, hey, can I have like $10 or whatever, she'd say no, because she didn't want me to be spoiled, I guess. I say as I'm sitting in front of all these Legos. But she would let me work for money. So like I just knew, don't even bother. You don't go to your grandma and say, hey, can I have $5 or $10? But I would go to her and say, hey, do you have something I can do to earn $5 or $10? And then even then she'd be kind of like, rolling her eyes or whatever, like, yeah, let's find you something to do. And she'd have me like wash all the windows in the house inside and out, for example, or something like that, or do some kind of yard work or whatever. And she also gave me an allowance of $5 a week, but I had to work for that too. It was funny because my mom gave me $5 a week, and that was just like allowance that I just could have. But my grandma, she gave me another $5 a week, but I had like a list of things I had to do. But so often I'd collect that at the end of the week, and then try to find something else that they could give me to do to earn some extra money. And then maybe I'd have like 10 or 15 bucks in my pocket. And then I would get on my bike and I would ride down to Toys R Us, because we actually didn't live too far from Toys R Us. Like a couple city blocks, like maybe a mile or a mile and a quarter. And I could ride my bike, just like snake through residential neighborhoods to get there. So like I used to ride my bike to Toys R Us all the time. And of course I'd go in there and I would look at all the video games, but like I never really had enough money in my pocket where I could just, get a game unless it was real cheap, My main thing with video games is I'd always go to KB Toys and check the clearance bin over there, because there was usually better deals. But I'd go check the video games, and then I would go to the opposite end of the store, and that's where the Legos were. And I would find like an inexpensive Lego set. Like they'd have like the minifigure sets. I don't know if you guys remember that. You'd pay like $8 or $10 at most, and you'd get like a pack of 5 minifigures with a bunch of accessories. And they'd be themed. Like there was like, a space minifigure set. So like during this time, the 4 big sets, or not sets, but like series or whatever you want to call it, was the Town. They've always had Town. Pirates, Space, and then Castle. And then later some other things came. Like once you got into the early 90s, like some other stuff came along. And, but it's funny because I always felt like there was so much space stuff. And now like, I'll go to, still to this day, if I go to Target or something, I'll go to the Lego aisle, and it's just like, like I'd rather go buy another old set from back in the day. But anyway, I'd go over there and I'd find some set to buy, and I'd come home with something like this little twin arm launcher here. It would probably come with like a couple minifigures and goes along with what I already have, so that'd be pretty cool. And I don't know if I'll be able to find, if I can find the picture, I will take a picture of the picture and put it in this video. But when I was a kid, I had this big table in my room that was only like 18 inches high and had all these cubby holes underneath it. Like if you were looking for like a Lego table, this would have been perfect. Like the top of it was like, I don't know what that countertop is. They have that sort of laminate countertop that they use like in homes sometimes. It was like that kind of material. So it was super smooth and like didn't have any seams in it or anything. And it was big enough that you could set up like pretty big like Lego spreads. And so I was always like trying to build a space station on that thing or whatever. But for sets that I got more recently, and by more recently I mean like maybe 10 years ago instead of 30 years ago, I went through a period where like my interest in Legos kind of came back. And this was before there were quite so many like flippers and resellers and stuff like constantly trolling Craigslist, and so you could often find a lot of good stuff on there. And so there's a lot more sets that I have now, not so much on the table here, but like pirate sets and space sets that I got off of Craigslist because I would just buy like big lots of Lego off of people. Like you'd see someone selling like a whole bin of Legos, and there'd be a stack of instruction manuals, and it stands to reason that you're going to be able to build pretty much all of those instruction manual sets with the stuff in the bin. And if not, I had so many extra Legos I probably had the spare pieces. Or these days, you can just go online if you need a spare piece to a place like Bricklink. and so I was really able to get a lot more Lego sets that way. And so one example of that would be this one, the whatever Dragon Fortress. Like I said, I don't remember its name, but really cool set. I don't actually remember the set even from back in the day. I just saw it and was like, well, that looks cool. I should buy that. And then, like I said, I changed the roof over here. I think this looks way better than what was on there. What was on there was just like this little, like this, like they just put two plates, and then that was just like leaning. But I didn't think that looked very cool, so I changed it because I already had all these like roof pieces. The other big set I can think of that I got more recently was this one. I think it's called like the Forestman's River Crossing or something like that. Sort of was a pricier set. I don't know if it is anymore. One of the reasons it was a pricier set was that this Forestman Lady, this is the only set the Forestman Lady ever came with. And so that makes it like a rare minifigure for whatever that's worth. But then a few years later, they started releasing all these like classic minifigures that you could buy in little sets. And the River Lady came with one of those sets, which I thought was pretty cool. So I don't know if that's devalued the set. I mean, I don't really care. But that set I actually got pretty cheap on eBay, believe it or not, because it was a seller with zero feedback, but they were local to me so that I could just go pick it up. Like I asked the person, like, can I just come pick it up? And he said, yeah. And I was like, well, then what do I have to lose, right? I mean, unless he's going to, he can't scam me. I guess he could be waiting in the bushes with a sock full of quarters. But other than that, I felt like I was pretty much okay. But aside from this one and that one, the rest of these I've had since I was a kid. For the most part, like this tree came with some other big set that I got that I already got rid of. They, 5, 6, 8, it was more than 5 years ago. I guess more like 8 years ago. The older you get, the faster time goes by. And something that was only a few years ago, or feels like it was only a few years ago, was actually like 10 years ago. But they came out with a bunch of Newcastle sets, and I bought a bunch of them. And I just ended up not really liking them. And for the most part, I would get rid of them, but I kind of cherry-picked the stuff I wanted to keep. So like this big tree came with this one set. And I didn't like the set, but I kept the tree. So, yeah, where was I going with that? I don't even remember. Yeah, this is a newer set here, too, this little carriage. I have more like that, but I don't have them built. I have some sets that I don't have built. For some reason, I have the Black Falcon's Fortress, or almost all of it. I'm missing a few pieces. Much like this Forestman's River Crossing, the Black Falcon's Fortress comes with one thing that didn't come with any other set. And I have it, even though I don't remember ever buying the Black Falcon's Fortress. So, but I am missing a few pieces, and I've just never gotten around to buying them on Bricklink so that I can build that set back up, because then I don't know where am I going to put it. And, I mean, as far as sets I don't have, the only set that I don't have classic castle-wise that I would really like to have was called the Guarded Inn. And that set's got, I mean, all these classic castle sets have gotten pretty expensive. So it's not really an excuse not to get it. I've just never gotten around to it just because I guess it's not a big priority for me. But so my point was just to say that, around the time I was 11, 12, 13 years old, I was really, really into these castle Legos. And it made me more interested in like other fantasy themed things, and one of those was video games, like fantasy video games, and so it kind of got me a little bit interested in like role playing games on the NES. And when most people think of role playing games on the NES, maybe their mind goes straight to Final Fantasy, but for me, the two games that I instantly think of are Ultima, or Exodus, which came out in 87 early 88, I want to say. It was in 88. We talked about this on a read-through, but I can't remember which one. And I never had this one when I was a kid, but Jonathan did. I used to watch him play it a lot. I've still never played through this game. I've played quite a bit of it. It's a cool game. But like I said, we already covered this on a magazine read-through, and I mean, we're not going to cover two role-playing games in the same episode. But so this one, and then the other one, which I did play extensively as a kid, was Dragon Warrior. And I can only tell you where I think I got Dragon Warrior. So I had Dragon Warrior when I was a kid, but I know I didn't buy it. So I mentioned this in the magazine read-through a little bit that just got uploaded as well. But Dragon Warrior came out in 1989 here. Obviously, Dragon Quest came out in Japan before that. And I don't really know what made Nintendo of America want to bring Dragon Warrior out here, but they actually localized it for the NES themselves. So like this game was of course published by Enix in Japan, but Nintendo of America made a bunch of changes, like even some graphical changes to make the game look a little bit better. They removed like some imagery that they thought was not going to be good for American audiences. You know, they were always really funny about like religious imagery, so they didn't want it in the game. So they made those changes, and the game came out here in 1989. And the game really didn't sell that well. So, and of course, Nintendo was, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to interview like Howard Phillips or something, which isn't going to happen. So I don't really know what happened, but they must have made like 750,000 copies of this game or something, because what ended up happening towards the end of 1990 was they had this deal going on where if you subscribed to Nintendo Power, whether it was a renewal or a new subscription, they would send you a copy of Dragon Warrior for free because they had so many of these just sitting. And I think that when that happened, this game basically became worthless. Because it's not like the price of Nintendo Power subscription went up or anything. And it was $20 back then for a subscription. And by then it may have been monthly. I forgot when the switchover happened. But either way, nobody was going to be able to sell a copy of Dragon Warrior because like for $20, you could get a copy of Dragon Warrior and a year subscription to Nintendo Power. So like everybody was just going to do that. And like if you happened to already have Dragon Warrior and then you renewed your subscription, they were going to send you another copy which you weren't really going to be able to do anything with because like a video game store wasn't going to give you any money for it because the game was basically worthless because Nintendo was giving it out for free. So all of that is to say that I think that my friend Isaiah gave me this game. Isaiah was a kid I started hanging out with in 7th grade, I want to say. 7th grade, it was 7th grade. And we kind of became friends because he was also into Castle Legos. And in fact, he had a similar table in his room to the one I was talking about, just in that he had a large, low table. And he had actually put out, I think it was like butcher paper or something, underneath all the sets so that he could draw in like roads and stuff like that, which I thought was pretty cool. But like I remember playing Dragon Warrior extensively over at his house one night. Like I spent the night, and I think I was just playing Dragon Warrior all night. And I think that what happened was that he had 2 copies of it because he had gotten a copy through that Nintendo Power thing, and I think he just gave it to me because it was just, as I say, it was basically worthless. And I also mentioned this in the magazine read through, but one thing I thought was really cool was that, you know, if you bought this game off the shelf, you know, in like 89 or early 90, you just got the game as you would get any game. It came with, you know, the cartridge and an instruction manual, and that was pretty much it. I have the instruction manual here because I didn't put it back in the box for whatever reason. But what was cool was that it came with this other stuff. Well, actually, I shouldn't say. I'm not sure where this came from. So there's this laminated card. It says Dragon Warrior Adventure Guide. And all it really is it has a list of the levels, you know, your character levels, how many hit points, or how many experience points rather you need to get to those levels, and then how many hit points and magic points you'll have when you get there. And then it says like where you should kind of be headed at that point, what spells you get, et cetera, like which weapons they're saying you should have. So, and like I said, it's laminated, so it's the kind of thing you could sort of keep out and keep referring to. But then they also had, they sent out this Dragon Warrior Explorer's Handbook, which is really just a pocket-sized complete walkthrough of the game, although it's a very superficial walkthrough. But I mean, Dragon Warrior is not exactly a deep game, so how much of a walkthrough do you really need? So, I mean, this would tell you where to go. There's maps of all the dungeons, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty cool. So I figure now, like, let's check out some Dragon Warrior and like a little kind of let's play type of thing, just because I love this game so much, and you know, hopefully you guys will get a kick out of seeing it. So now let's go play some Dragon Warrior. All right, guys. So here we've got Dragon Warrior. Firstly, since you guys had to put up with that really crappy audio when I was down in the kitchen, I decided to bring out the big boy over here. So hopefully now it will sound at least somewhat better. So just to get you guys sort of up to speed here, obviously we've got Dragon Warrior here. Now, I don't think it would be very entertaining to watch me play through the game right from the beginning, because I'm just going to be, you know, fighting 4 slimes going to the end, fighting 4 slimes going to the end. So, and I had to record a bunch of gameplay footage of this game for that magazine read-through anyway. So what I ended up doing was just sinking like, you know, 4 or 5 hours into the game, not much, building up our levels and, you know, getting some equipment, weapons and whatnot, and just sort of getting to a point where, you know, I can turn on the game and we kind of have something to go do, which I think will make it at least a little bit more entertaining to watch. So we're going to go ahead and hit start. And like I said, I've already got a game going, obviously CGQ. And here we are in Tantegel Castle, or however you say it. And the king, of course, is glad that we're back playing the game. We need 424 points to get to the next level. I want to say I'm at level 9, but I can't remember. We can check right now by going to status. Oh, it says there, yeah, level 9. 50 hit points, 36 magic points, so not bad. The reason I wanted to get to level 9 is that's the level where you learn the spell Radiant, which, you know, when you go into a dungeon, you can't really see anything. Like, the only square that's illuminated is the square that you are occupying. And you can use a torch to illuminate a few of the squares around you, but if you have Radiant, that illuminates even more. So, basically what we need to do here, just to give you guys the plan, is we need to head up north and pick up... What are we picking up? We're picking up the large shield. I already have the money saved up, so we're picking up the large shield from whatever the town is up in the north. And then we're going to head south across a bridge and go into a dungeon called, I think it's called the Mountain Cave or something. I have it over here. Yeah, the Rock Mountain Cave. And we're going to pick up the Fighter's Ring, which I think just gives a slight boost to some of our stats. So that'll be nice. Of course, now that we're at level 9, you know, a lot of the monsters just end up running away. And the ones that don't meet with a quick fate. One thing I wanted to kind of talk about just briefly, because I realized that during the other part of the video, I kind of started a thought and didn't get to finish it because I sidetracked myself. You know, I was mentioning how, you know, Nintendo must have printed up like 750,000 copies of this game, which I don't know how many they actually printed out, but the point I was trying to make is that they produced so many copies of Dragon Warrior that even after they started doing the Nintendo Power thing, apparently that Nintendo Power promotion got 500,000 copies of Dragon Warrior out into the hands of gamers. So like in late 1990, they still had like 500,000 copies of this game. And apparently it was the success of that, like I guess the positive reception that Dragon Warrior got, wrong shop, that led to Dragon Warrior 2, 3, and 4 coming out in this country. So perhaps those games would not have come out here if it hadn't been for the Nintendo Power promotion sort of raising awareness of Dragon Warrior and getting people interested in it. All right, so here we are at the you know, weapons and armor dealer. So I'm going to talk to him, and again, what we're looking for is the large shield, which you can see we have 822 gold, and the large shield costs 800. But unlike games like Final Fantasy, you can't carry more than one like weapon or piece of armor. So what happens is that you automatically sell back whatever you already had. So like right now we're equipped with the small shield, and so I'm going to buy the large shield, and then you'll see right here that he's going to give us 45 gold for the small shield, which isn't a whole lot of money, but we don't really need anything. So the fact that we're broke doesn't really matter. Oh, whoops. Okay, so that's it for up here. So now we have to make the long walk all the way down south. This was actually the first game I think I ever played that had random battles. It was really only the second role-playing game I ever played after Ultima. And of course, the battles in Ultima are not random because you can see the enemies moving around the map, and so you can sort of choose to avoid them. But, you know, whereas Ultima is like really an American-style RPG, I mean, it was made by an American, Richard Garriott, and so it more closely follows the rules of, like, Dungeons and Dragons. You know, this obviously is a Japanese-style role-playing game, like Final Fantasy, and, you know, one of the defining characteristics, I would say, of a Japanese RPG is the random battles. So now we have to go south, and then at some point we're going to turn right. Really should have been able to kill that magician in one hit. That's too bad. You know, obviously we don't want to have little small potatoes kind of enemies like this taking down our hit points. Same thing with the scorpion, though, really. Why am I having so much of a hard time with the scorpion? I do have the hand axe, right? Yeah. Alright, well, whatever. So we're gonna go... Oh, boy. When you're trying to build up your levels and if you're like level 7 or 8, these skeletons are actually the biggest bang for your buck. Because they give you 11 experience points and like in the mid-20s for gold, which is really good. There we go. We managed to one-hit kill the Magidrakey. Oy, oy, oy. So that's one of the things that's going to drive a lot of people nuts about this game, is not only is it random battles, but it's lots and lots of battles. The amount of grinding you have to do in this game is crazy. You know, when you first start a new game, you can easily... Sorry, I have to figure out... I'm not exactly sure where I'm going here. So, oh, this is the right way. Yeah, there we go. There it is. The amount of grinding you have to do when you first start this game, like, you can spend at least an hour just fighting slimes enough, you know, to build up to the first couple levels and upgrade some of your weapons. Because you only start off the game with, I think, 120 gold. Alright, so here we are in the first dungeon... Well, not the first dungeon, but the only dungeon we're going to. And so as you can see, we can't actually see anything. So all we have to do is go to Spell, and we're going to do Radiant. And that's quite... You can see quite a bit there. That's a lot more than you get to see if you just use a torch. So, and then of course, here we have random battles we have to deal with. I don't have a map for this dungeon, so I don't know how long this is going to take. Well, we're not going that way. And then, like I said, our ultimate goal here is we're trying to find something called the Fighter's Ring. I was kind of hoping we were going to see some different enemies down here, rather than just, you know, the magician is just what's up above. You know, whereas games like Final Fantasy had a bigger selection of... ooh, here we got something. Oh, we got some herb. That's cool. So herb is what you use to... you can use that to replenish your health. We also have a spell called Heal that we can use to replenish our health. But obviously, we only have so many magic points. So having the herb instead is nice. So I was going to say, like, a game like Final Fantasy really has more of a variety of enemies. Like, you know, in that game, if you were to go... into a dungeon, there would be like unique enemies that you didn't see up above, and now you can see that our radiant spell is starting to wear off, so the little square shrunk a little bit. But that's no big deal. See, now I think that's about the size that it is when you use a torch. So, all right, that's also not the right staircase. See, normally I'd be... Oh, here's a new... I haven't fought a Druid before. Oh, well, 3 hit points is not much. I was afraid he was going to be tough. Alright, he's dead already. So, we're down to 18 hit points, so I'm going to go ahead and heal. So, 33, that'll be okay for a while. So basically now we're just looking for the correct staircase to go down. Goodness. Like I said, lots and lots of random battles. But that's okay because actually we're trying to save up 3,000 gold now so that we can buy the full plate of armor. And then after that we're going to end up going... well, I'm not going to do it here with you guys, but the next step is going to be to go to another town and get the broadsword. And I don't even know how much that's going to cost, but I'm sure a lot. I know I'm retracing my steps here, but I'm not sure. I feel like we need to go figure out how to get... Come on. To that staircase right there. But I didn't see another way to go. Obviously, I could cheat and just have a map, but I just thought this would be more fun. But, you know, I would be drawing a map on some graph paper right now if it wasn't for the fact that I was, you know, doing this sort of Let's Play type of deal. Alright, I got that. Oh, well, did we already go to that one then? I don't know. Come on. See, sometimes these battles are just annoying because you get a lot of these battles, but like, you know you're gonna win, and so it's just sort of a waste of time, you know? Especially, like, I really hate it when you end up running into enemies that just run away, because then it's like, well, why did you try to fight me in the first place, you know? Like, can you imagine if you're, like, walking down the street and, like, some guy comes up to you like he wants to fight you, and then as soon as he sees how big you are, he runs? Like, you're just wasting my time, dude. So we finally found, ooh, a Drachima. That doesn't sound good. Oh, well, never mind. We got an excellent hit, so... wow, 2 chests. Got a torch, which we're not really going to use. And the other one we got the fighter's ring already. Well, shoot. That made that easy. Well, let's just kind of cruise around the rest of this level and see if there's anything else cool to check out. Some of these stupid Drachimas. It's always, you know, I don't know if it's just because of the lack of memory on a Nintendo cartridge, but this game is really guilty of having, like, a lot of enemies that all look basically the same, but they're, like, a different color. You know, like, there's, like, the Drakey or Draki or whatever, and that one's, like, blue. And then you have, like, the Magidrakey, and that's red. And then here you have the Drachima that's, like, I don't know what color that was, like some kind of super light red or gold almost. I guess just as a way of, you know, using the same sprites sort of over and over again. Like, I don't know, what is that, like, peach colored? But at the same time, it's also kind of cool because in a way it also kind of gives you a sense of the caliber of the enemy that you're facing, because you'll know, you know, like if you fight like a skeleton, then you know how bad that is. But then if you fight like some sort of magic skeleton or like, you know, warlock skeleton, you know, okay, that's worse than a regular skeleton. Whereas if it's something you'd never seen before, you might not be as scared of it as you should be. Boy, this guy's really giving me some grief here. Alright, he's dead. Yeah, see, for how much of a fight he put up, 18 gold is really not a good return on your investment there. So like I said, I just want to cruise around. This didn't take as long as I thought it would, so I just figured let's cruise around the rest of this level at least. What the heck is that thing? I feel like I wish I had more health. See, because with guys like this, it's like you don't know how tough of an enemy this is. Like, he attacked me for only took 2 hit points, so that's not... He's nothing to worry about, really. But I didn't know that, so... A droll. Good lord. Alright, Poltergeist. So that's like what I'm talking about. You know, you have the ghost who's orange, and you run into this thing, and it's a poltergeist, and you kind of already know, okay, that's going to be worse. So however much problem you might have with a ghost, buckle up, because this is going to be worse than that. The biggest knock on this game really is just that these battles, they just get really monotonous. But, I mean, I don't know, how's that different than any role-playing game, really? So I'm kind of glad we're still cruising around because we're finding stuff, although 13 gold is, like, you get more than that in one battle, so that seems like kind of a silly thing to put in a treasure chest, you know? Here's another droll. And then you saw our little box, light box, is getting pretty small. And I think I might actually, since we found that torch, I think I might actually use a torch just because I don't want to burn through all of our magic points here. So, and I have like 3 torches here, so we might as well use one before this box gets any smaller. So that's how small the torch is. So that's pretty crappy, actually. Alright, we better, I think we better heal up. Do I have any more herbs? Oh, we have lots of herbs. There we go. So I think let's just see what's in this last chest, and then let's just find our way out of here. Not a very big, wow, 107 gold, that's worth it. See, now we're up to 527 gold, even though when we left town, we had like 60 or something, so that's pretty good. But yeah, I think let's go ahead and head out at this point. I was hoping that dungeon was going to be bigger, so... But, I mean, that's okay, because how long do you want to sit here and watch somebody play Dragon Warrior, really? I'm not really digging on this torch. Like, I got too used to the Radiant spell. I might have to go back to that. Sorry, my throat's a little bit irritated. I think I've been, like, talking on camera too much in the last 2 days. Alright, I don't like this. Let's go back to the Radiant spell. Oh, that only used 3 magic points. That's nothing. It's really weird that I don't have a solid memory of when I got this game, you know? Like I told you guys about my friend Isaiah, that's just sort of my working theory, but it's very strange to me that I would have a game like this that I enjoyed so much as a kid that I can't really remember when I got it. You know, you would think that having a buddy give you a game when you're a kid would be enough of a memorable experience that you know, you'd remember it, especially considering the little esoteric details of my life that I do manage to remember. For some reason, that's always a problem I have. Like, I don't remember, like, big things, but instead I remember all the little things in life. I don't know why that is. Like, I can always pull out these little nuggets of ephemera out of, like, the deep recesses of my mind. But then, like, you ask me, like, really basic things about, like, some project I worked on, you know, at work 2 weeks ago, and I can't really tell you anything about it. Like, that was 2 weeks ago, I don't remember. It's pretty lame. Alright, so we're almost out. Here we go. Of course, there's somebody waiting for us at the exit. But he's just a magician, so he's nothing to worry about. Oh, I didn't realize my hit points had gotten so low. That could have gotten ugly. So you can see here, when your hit points drop below 10, I think it's just because it's below 10, everything turns red, like, to warn you, like, hey, you're almost dead. So, good to know. So we herbed up. Somebody else can make the herb joke. I'm sure someone's going to say it. So let's just kill this guy, and then we'll head out. And then I think what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and hoof it back to the castle and save, and then we're just going to call it a day. The other thing I have a lot of as far as Legos go is I have a lot of space Legos. It'd be kind of cool to show those too, I guess. But I just felt like, you know, I wanted to talk about Dragon Warrior. And, you know, for me, Dragon Warrior and Castle Legos are really, like, intertwined as far as, you know, just childhood memories go. And so it just made it a lot more of a natural discussion to have. So, I mean, you know, I could just show all my space Legos, and that would just seem like a weirder thing, because I wouldn't know what to tie it to. But I also, you know, I was kind of talking about how, you know, I would just ride my bike to the store and buy Legos. And for some reason, that was more so the case with space Legos. I have lots and lots of small space Lego sets, and very few of the larger sets. In fact, I don't think I have any space Lego sets that I can think of off the top of my head that would be in sort of that, like, $100 category. Let's go to the end first. The vast majority of them are little tiny sets that I bought, you know, like little, like, vehicles and whatnot. And then I have a few of sort of the mid-size ships Although a lot of those I got off of Craigslist later on. But I don't have any of the larger sets. I always wanted the Space Monorail. Does anybody remember the Space Monorail? In fact, that I didn't say, but I used to always stop by that aisle too, because you had like the video game aisle first, and then you would go, I said the other side of the store had the Legos, but anything that was like a Lego train or monorail or something was actually on a different aisle where all the model trains were, and that was kind of like in the middle of the store. And they actually had a monorail put together, but it was behind glass, sort of like the way the Neo Geos were behind glass. One of the other things about this game that I kind of got a kick out of when I was a kid was the way, everybody talks with that Victorian English. And that was also something that Nintendo added when they brought it here. Because, I don't really know if you can have, like, Victorian English in Japanese or not. But, I don't know how that would work. But, so when they brought the game here, they decided to use all the Victorian English with the these and thys and thous and everything, which kind of adds the atmosphere in a way I think is kind of cool. So now we're back here talking to the king, and so we needed about 425 experience points to get to the next level, so I'm just curious how many we got on that little journey, so he's going to tell us right now. 185, so whatever 425 minus 185 is 260? So we gained 260 while we were gone about, so that's not bad. 240, no, sorry, 240. So we're going to save our game here, and they're on the Imperial Scrolls of Honor. And I'm going to say we're going to continue, even though we're not. I always like that he says this. He says, goodbye now, take care, and tempt not the fates. I just thought that was like a cool-ass thing to say. So I don't know why he even asked if you're going to continue. Or if you say you're not going to continue, well, here, I'll just show you. When you say you don't continue, it just gives you that little thing about... holding down the reset button before you save your game, but I don't ever bother doing that. I'm playing this on an EverDrive rather than my Dragon Warrior card. I doubt the battery is still good in my Dragon Warrior card. I'm not really sure, though. But why take the risk? I have replaced the batteries in a few of my games, but the problem is I don't know which games, so that was, like, stupid. Like, I should have left a little note for myself, like, inside the cartridge. I just put, like, a peelable sticker on the inside that just says, battery changed on whatever date, so I would remember to do it. So I said no, and now he says, rest then for a while. And then, so you get this little screen. So it's similar to the screen I think you get in Zelda, telling you to hold in reset while you press the power button. And somebody told me that's got something to do with not, by holding in the reset button when you turn it off, that way you don't send like a little tiny power spike, I guess, through the system. That would normally be harmless, but I guess it's enough to mess up the volatile memory in the cartridge, I guess. I don't know anything about that. But anyway, so that's going to do it for Dragon Warrior. I hope you guys found this to be an entertaining episode. I was very excited to show off some of my Lego stuff. I guess I could have showed it in more detail, but I don't really know how. I just wanted to relate it back to my memories. But, you can look up more information about any of those Lego sets. So, that'll do it for this episode of CGQ Plus, and thanks for sitting through what I'm sure was over an hour-long episode. So I will see you guys next time.